The Island. When I first beheld the landmass, I subconsciously accepted it as further trickery of my vision. Due to my hallucinatory state, my reasoning and judgment had been severely impaired. My mind had been regularly fooling me with apparitions, including those of unknown people walking on water and sharks floating in mid-air. One particular vision had held a beautiful waterfall where, underneath its cascade, there huddled recognisable members of my lost crew. They appeared jolly, whilst laughing and waving in my direction, as if beckoning me. This apparition gave me a notion to believe that heaven may actually exist, and here I was, at its reception, where a cheery embrace was offered from dead people I had known. Maybe I was on the brink where diminishing life was at a balance with summoning death. Other illusions displayed connections to my own morbid fears, especially of sharks and heights. The sight of land was maybe something I wanted to see, an hallucination formed from thoughtful desire, although this latest vision seemed quite different to the others. The colours appeared more veritable, from which emerged a clarity that revealed a quality which greatly differed from the previous visions. This roused hopeful desires that began to prod my lifeless body, and then I heard squawking. A small flock of birds flew overhead, and once again, like the land, looked real. Even in my current vague condition, I was certain I could hear the flapping of their wings. I momentarily dwelt on the possibility of experiencing some sort of madness before entering the realm of death. I raised my weary head and tried to focus with desperation, hoping this vision would not evaporate as the others had before. With all the strength I could muster, I managed to roll over onto my front and push myself up onto my knees. The birds had now sat down on a sandy strip of sand, and all appeared to be genuine. A mixture of relief and exhaustion caused me to buckle, as I now realised that the land and the birds were real. I lost consciousness again. When I came to, I was wondering if I had finally died. I was no longer on my raft, but now laying face down on wet sand. My throat was racked and screaming for water. I quickly concluded that I remained living as I noticed my raft lolling in the soft lapping surf, and all about the world was definite and unambiguous. I lay there for some time with pulsating pain all about my body. Even thoughts of standing up increased the throbbing in my head, and it seemed my strength and will were all but gone. I took hold of a hope that someone might see me and come to my aid. I tried to shout out, but my scorched throat and swollen tongue would not allow it. I surmised that it would be a travesty of justice if I were to die now through lack of water, especially after all I had been through. This thought gave me an urge, a mustering of spirit. About 20 yards ahead there were some large rocks where shrubbery lay behind. If I could just pull myself to this area, it may offer me protection from the baking heat, which, if I were to die, would allow me to do so in comparatively less discomfort. Like a wounded animal, I heaved and crawled, dragging myself forward in short bursts of great fortitude, paying no heed to my incessant aching. Through purpose and drive, I managed to reach the large flat boulders, which were smooth and hot and yielded no mercy. Although, what did I expect? A pool of fresh water nestling amongst the rocks, a table laden with food where a young lass would serve me wine. This ridiculous musing seemed to ease my anxiety and give comfort to my waning sanity. I dragged myself a few feet past the rocks and into the shade of the shrubbery, where I could now die in the cooler shadows. I began to drift in thoughts about dying and death. No one could ever inform how death is and what happens. We take it for granted that the body dies, but what happens to the mind? Moreover, if a man has a soul, where does it go? My vision began to blur, and my head swirled with thoughts of my demise and concepts of ephemeral essence of life and mortality. I was now wishing that death would come soon and take me away from this wretched suffering. I felt a need to voice what I considered to be my last words. I overruled the pain in my body and managed to muster my voice. "Enough is enough," was all I could manage, and as I passed out, I croaked, "Thank God."